Hello and welcome back to Serendipity Intended. My name is JJJan and it is January the 2nd and time for another challenge or another day in the Junk Journal January Challenge, sponsored by Coffee and Creativity. Or actually it's Creativity and Coffee. I'm sorry, I got the name backwards. So I am doing this challenge in my daily journal, which this year is a Hobonichi. So I'm going to go ahead and get the journal out of its cover and take a look at the prompt for today. So, which I've glued in and actually created a page for. So day 2 says mood board. Now, this is a whole year journal. And so doing a mood board for the entire year, it's just not going to happen. But I thought it would be kind of nice to do a little bit of a mood board for the month of January. And I do already have some kind of colors going here, but what I thought I would do is sort of stick with sort of the beiges and whites and browns and blacks, so kind of a very neutral palette with some pops of color that are sort of botanical inspired or nature inspired. So that's what I'm going to do here. I did do a little bit of journaling on this page, and it's not terribly interesting journaling. I was keeping track of some things that I needed to do. So what I did was I grabbed some scraps. These are all from my scrap bowl. Many of them are from the December challenge, but I thought I could use these to kind of create a bit of a mood board. And I'm going to use my square hole punch and these papers. So I'm going to cut them out first, and then I'm going to decide what I want to do with them. So moving them over here. So the first thing I need to decide is on what size I'm going to use, the big squares or the small square. And I'm thinking the big square might actually be too big. So I'm just going to grab a bit of a scrap piece here. That's probably too small. Yikes. I'm just going to grab this and give a quick punch. And then I can kind of see. So if I do this, I'm really only going to be able to get 2 squares out of this. But if I do the smaller square, can I get more? That's really the question. Ooh. If I do the smaller square, I can do 1. Oh my goodness. 2. I really can't do, unless I overlap this completely, I still can't do more side to side. I can probably fit a few more up and down, but I think I'm just going to stick with the bigger square. This is not a color that I want to use though, so it's a little too warm. I want to stay with moodier colors. So yeah, so we're going to use the large punch, and we're just gonna see what we get here, punch out some different pieces and decide what works. So I am going to pause the video because there's really no reason for you to watch me punch all of these squares. I'll restart it once I've got all the squares punched. Okay, so I have some squares punched out, and I'm thinking I was originally going to fill in the whole thing, but I almost kind of like it like this. I do have this tag here that I might also include in. So I'm going to trim this, and I'm also going to trim this tag because I think I'm going to glue this down over top just to hide the journaling underneath a little bit, because I don't think it's terribly interesting. And then I can still see it by lifting up the tag. So I think that's the route I'm going to go. So first I need to cut all of this out. Again, I'm not going to make you watch me do that. Okay, so I have these here, and I do think that I want to add a little bit of distress at least around the tag, because I did leave a little bit of a white border and it's bugging me. So I'm gonna tone that down a bit. And I'm okay with the back being plain, but I think it might be nice to just use the same ink and just lightly rub on the back just to take down some of the whiteness, because I will be lifting this up and I could potentially add some journaling on the back side here. All right, so then I can glue that here. All right, so now I need to decide what I'm going to do with this, and I do think that these work, and I like the way that they're arranged. I'm going to turn that text sideways, I think. So I would like to pull the blue up a little bit, so maybe swap that there, like so. Then the question is, do I maybe take this out and go that route? No, as much as I like that, I think we're gonna just leave it like so. And I could, I suppose, oh, that's pretty. I could go like so. No, I'm gonna leave it simple. Just gonna do these squares. All right, give me a moment. I'm gonna go ahead and glue these down and then I'll be back. Okay, so I have all of those pieces glued down. I have this one little other piece left, and I like the darker brown. I'm gonna add that right here. And again, I think this one I'm gonna tear, because I do love me some torn edges. And whoops, I'm gonna use that in this little space that's left below the writing that I've already done, just to fill that in, like so. And I had toyed with, you know, maybe including the bird over top of this. And while I do like that look, maybe I'll do that later with something, I want to keep this a little bit more simple. So I'm going to take these other pieces and just set them aside for another time. Now, before I glue my tag down, I need to do a bit with this page. And I'm maybe done with the glue, so let me put that away. And also the scissors, so let me get those out of the way. So I do like to color things in and you know, add a bit of hand work. That's one of the things that I wanted to get back into. So it was fairly sunny yesterday, but it was only 28 degrees, so it's pretty chilly. And I originally did this with blue ballpoint, but I think I'm gonna go back and go over it with the black, just to make it stand out a little bit more. So I thought the puzzle that we're doing has a lot of these darker sort of colors in it. So I'm not interested at all in reproducing an actual puzzle piece, but I thought what I could do is just add some sort of hints of something in here to give it a little bit of a feel for, this is a little too bright of a yellow for what I'm looking for. It's probably a little bit better. It's more of a wintertime yellow. Okay, and then let's do, I already did blue. Let me do this, what is this? Sienna brown. Do that super, super light here in the background. So I guess it's illustration that I do in my journals, or that I have done in my journals. I'm not an artist. They're drawings, but I do sort of like that sort of hand illustrated feel. I'm really drawn to journalers who draw in their journals, and that was one of the things that I really wanted to get back to, was sort of that hand drawn look and feel in my journals. So I'm gonna go that route. Maybe do a little bit of blue to kind of echo out that blue that's there. And if I do it super, super light, I don't really have a teal, but if I do it super light, maybe it'll have the feeling of the teal. This is just a light blue from Artist's Loft. All right, and then the puzzle piece. So it's a Hercule Poirot puzzle, so it's very moody. So I thought maybe I could just, ooh, that is a really bright green. I thought I was grabbing a forest green, not an emerald green. This is the dark green that I wanted. So just doing something that looks like it might be shape, and then I don't know, maybe this is like a man's jacket, and then somebody standing there and his leg, and then hint of blue here, and then here, and then maybe this medium brown for the rest of it. Again, I don't know what this is even supposed to be. A little bit more blue. And then maybe go back in with my pen just to give it a little more definition, so it sort of looks like a puzzle piece. All right, so that works. And then I can glue this down over top of it and lift it, be able to lift it up and see what I wrote underneath. So just the smallest amount of glue. And there we go. So I thought maybe, again, just to sort of incorporate that hand-drawn element in, I have space here for one more square. I'm not going to glue this down, but what I am going to do is use it to trace out one more square. So that I have it there. And then I will take, I need a little something underneath of here to make this a little easier there to draw on. Okay, so I'm gonna go around across or along the outline. And what I think I'm going to do is create a flower similar to this one. I'm going to draw it and then add some color to it, and it'll sort of echo, so I'll end up with 3 flowers, and there'll also be a little bit of a hand-drawn element to the page. Right, so I am going to just lightly sketch out a little bit of what I want to do, just so I have some guides to go by, and then I will, and again, I'm gonna just do this really lightly. This is less about coloring in and more about just kind of creating the texture, and then I'll go back in with colored pencils and add that in. There. And then do the background first. Again, this blue-gray, just ever so lightly. There. And then a little bit darker blue. Right, and then I'm gonna do a little bit of this yellow ochre color first, just to work it in there. And grab this dark green. I really would like to find some olive, and I need a little bit brighter yellow as well. All right, I can't find my olive, so I'm gonna try adding some gold, mixing that in, and that helps quite a bit. And then I've got a dark green as opposed to, oh, it's the same color, but this is a Prismacolor dark green. I'm gonna just go back over a little bit, it's a slightly different shade. All right, and then I've got yellow. This is Spanish orange, actually, but I think I'm gonna swirl this in and get a similar yellow going. And then come back in. Some definition, and then this is a black, just like there's some shading around these center pieces just to give a little bit of definition. Okay, so again, I'm not an artist, but a gold here. Just like to play, but made a little image that's mine, and I'm pretty satisfied with the way that turned out. Now, the only thing that I would like to do is I do want to add some definition to these squares. And I traced around this square, so I'm going to do the same thing with my Micron pen. I'm just going to go around each of the squares because this is also sort of traced around just to kind of tie all of the elements together. So give me a moment to do that and I'll be right back. Right, so despite my best efforts, I ended up drawing on the squares a little bit and it's a little sloppier than I intended it to be. So I'm just going to work with that. I'm going to go back around the squares and I'm going to intentionally draw another line that is not even. I'm going to go a little fast, and there's nothing precise about this, but I'm basically just letting it be a messy border. And as I'm looking at this, I actually like it better than I think I would have if I had succeeded in getting all of the lines straight. But this way, my couple of places where I oopsed and went over the front of the square and drew on it. Do a couple more on purpose here. It makes sense and doesn't look like a mistake. It looks much more intentional. So when life gives you lemons, you make some lemonade. Okay, that works. And do a little bit here too. All right, so that is my mood board. And try and use that as a little bit of a jumping off point for the other pages that I do in terms of colors. That feels sort of January to me, but also in terms of style or feel, just a little vintage, a little bit botanical. Right? I think that's kind of fun. Thanks for joining me. I had a good time. I hope you did too. And as always, I hope that you make a great day. Bye.